What if the life you're protecting is the very thing draining you, and the deadline is closer than you think? One ordinary afternoon can expose how replaceable you are. So how do you start over without losing everything? Have you ever looked at your life and thought, this isn't where I was supposed to be? Like you missed a turn years ago and kept driving anyway. And the question won't let go. Maybe you spent years chasing someone else's dream, trying to earn approval instead of meaning. Maybe you chose what sounded responsible, not what felt true. But listen, this is where it gets personal. The safe path has a script, the degree your parents preferred, the job that pays the bills, the life that looks right from the outside. Yet inside, it can feel completely hollow. And then you ask it, now you're wondering, is it too late to start over? Have I wasted too many years to change direction? If that question keeps you awake at night, stay close, because this story answers it. Once there was a man who lived the wrong life for 15 years, until one quiet afternoon forced him to reposition everything. Not with drama, just truth. And what triggered it will surprise you. In a busy coastal city built on trade and commerce, he was 37, a senior logistics coordinator at a large shipping company. The harbor was always moving. But he felt stuck in place. On paper, his life looked successful: stable salary, rented apartment with a harbor view, a car, health insurance, colleagues who respected him. His family was proud. But paper can lie. Every morning he opened the same spreadsheets he'd stared at for over a decade, and something inside him felt like it was slowly dying. The numbers moved. He didn't. And he knew why. He had never wanted this career. When he was young, he loved working with wood in his grandfather's small workshop, sanding rough planks smooth, shaping chairs and shelves with careful hands. And one detail stayed with him. After graduation, his father sat him down and said, "Carpentry isn't a real career. You need a degree. You need an office job. That's how you build a respectable life." And he believed him, so he listened. He studied business management, got hired, and climbed the ladder. With every step upward, he felt himself sinking deeper into a life that didn't belong to him. And someone at home noticed first. His wife said one evening, "You come home looking like you've lost something. You don't laugh anymore. You don't talk about the future. What happened to you?" He heard the truth in her voice, and still hid. He wanted to say everything. He wasn't exhausted from work, but from pretending it mattered. Every promotion felt like another lock on a cage. He'd played a role for 15 years. But he swallowed it. Instead, he said what he always said, "I'm just tired. It's been a long week." The words sounded harmless, but they were a surrender. Because the real truth wasn't tiredness. It was fear. He was afraid that at 37 it was too late to change. Afraid walking away from stability meant losing everything. Afraid his family would be disappointed. Afraid starting over proved 15 years were a mistake. And that fear had. So he stayed, day after day, spreadsheet after spreadsheet, pretending this was enough. Until the afternoon that broke everything open. It happened on a Tuesday, during a routine meeting. And the room changed in seconds. A colleague in his early 50s, loyal for over 20 years, collapsed at his desk. Heart attack. Paramedics came. The office went silent in a way that felt unnatural. But the silence didn't last long. 3 days later they learned he didn't survive. The company sent flowers. People posted condolences online. By the following Monday, someone new was sitting in his chair. And the erasing began, quietly and efficiently. His name vanished from the email system. His coffee mug ended up in the breakroom trash. 20 years of loyalty erased in 1 week. Watching that, the 37-year-old felt a cold truth settle in his chest. And that night, he froze. That evening he sat in his car in the parking garage and couldn't drive. Couldn't move. Hands on the wheel, staring at a concrete wall, he felt a thought arrive not as a whisper, but as a scream. And it asked him something ruthless. If I died at my desk tomorrow, would I be proud of the life I lived? Would I look back and say, This was the life I chose? The answer hit immediately, devastatingly, no. And once he admitted that, everything else followed. He saw 15 years of safety, 15 years of doing what others expected, 15 years of silencing the part of himself that knew what it wanted. He pressed his forehead to the wheel and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Then he added, "I need to find out who I actually am." That weekend, for the first time in years, he didn't think about work. He drove 2 hours to the small town where he grew up. And he stopped at one place he'd avoided. He parked outside his grandfather's old workshop, closed, dusty, but still standing. He pushed the door open. The smell of old wood hit him like a wave. Tools hung untouched. A half-finished chair sat under cobwebs. Then his hand found he ran his hand along the workbench, and something in his chest shifted, like a door opening after being locked too long. In that quiet, an old neighbor appeared in the doorway, a retired craftsman in his 70s. And he said something. The neighbor smiled and said he never thought he'd see anyone from that family back in the workshop. The man admitted, "I don't know what I'm doing here. I just needed to feel something real." The neighbor studied him, then named the pain. "You look like a man who's been living someone else's life," the neighbor said. "Am I wrong?" The man couldn't answer, because the answer was written on his face. "Come," the neighbor added. "Let me show you something." And what he showed, he led him to a small bench outside the workshop, overlooking a valley where a river met the fields. They sat in the afternoon light. The old man reached into his pocket and pulled out a scratched brass compass. "And he said it came from, your grandfather gave me this the year before he passed," he said, holding it flat. "He told me something I never forgot." Then he quoted him, "Most people spend their lives building roads, smooth, impressive roads, without asking the most important question, is this road going where I actually want to go?" He tapped the compass gently. A compass doesn't care how good your road is. It only tells you direction. And then came the line that landed like a weight. "If your direction is wrong," the neighbor said, "every step forward is a step away from where you belong." The man stared at the compass and asked, "So what do I do? I've walked the wrong way for 15 years. I can't erase that." The old man said, "That's where you're wrong. You didn't waste 15 years. He listed what those years built: discipline, patience, managing people, solving problems under pressure. Those aren't wasted skills," he said. "They're tools." He pointed back to the workshop. "When a carpenter makes a mistake, does he throw the whole plank away? No. He repositions. He measures again, finds a new angle. The wood isn't ruined," he said. "It just needs a different cut." Then he looked him in the eyes. "Your life isn't ruined. It just needs a different cut. But first," he warned, "you have to be honest about what direction your compass is pointing." Then he said repositioning isn't burning everything down. It's 3 things. First, admit where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where others think you are, where you actually are. Most people never change because they can't even admit they're lost. And if that stings, good, because the second, remember what made you come alive, not what impresses people, not what pays the most. What made you lose track of time? What gave you energy instead of draining it? That feeling, the neighbor said, is your compass needle. And, third, take one step in the new direction before you feel ready. You'll never feel ready, he said. Readiness is a lie fear tells you, so you stay still. The step comes first. The courage follows. The man sat silent, then admitted, "I'm scared." The old man answered, "Good. Fear means you're about to do something that matters." The next day, he didn't quit his job. That would have been reckless. Instead, he did something harder. He started living 2 lives, honestly. And on weekday evenings after work, he drove to the workshop. He cleaned it, fixed the lights, sharpened old tools, and for 2 hours each night practiced cutting, sanding, joining. His hands remembered what his mind tried to forget. If you're feeling that same pull right now, take a second and subscribe for more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what's the workshop you've been avoiding? Because his next step wasn't private anymore. On weekends he enrolled in a furniture design course at a community trade school. He was the oldest student, everyone else was early 20s. He felt foolish, until the instructor, 30 years in custom furniture, told him age was in.